My wife enjoys romantic comedies and is somewhat partial to feel-good flicks, such as the Hallmark Channel pumps out. With Christmas around the corner, you might not have noticed there's this Christmas thing coming up, but in any case, my wife couldn't be happier, as there's 24/7 Christmas films. There's a channel dedicated to it, all on Sky, playing festive feel-good films. Me, I prefer action, science fiction, car chases, explosions. I quite enjoy disaster films as well, made famous in the 70s by the likes of The Towering Inferno or The Poseidon Adventure. More recently, you've got the likes of The Day After Tomorrow, Dante's Peak, Armageddon, Volcano, 2012, or Earthquake. One thing the films I enjoy often share is the idea of man battling against changing nature to survive. This might be your ocean-going liner floating the wrong way up, a town helpless before the face of volcanic flows, or helpless eyes looking up at the towering wall of a tsunami. Of course, there's always a happy ending to the film, be that our plucky but unlikely heroes having found the safe spot away from the disaster, or having successfully climbed up through the bows of a ship to daylight, or the world's best miners successfully detonating an asteroid. The credits roll, the lights in the cinema come up, and we leave the cinema. Me apologising to Sam because often my choice of film is a bit silly, it's a bit formulaic, and it's often poorly written. There are many hours and pennies that Sam, and me too, if I'll be honest with myself, that we've lost to poor films of my choice in the cinema. But the real world is different, and that's only because we've not reached the good, feel-good part at the end yet. We're actually a third of the way through the film, but the drama is getting going. In our reading today, the disciples ask Jesus when the end will be that heralds the kingdom of God on earth. Jesus tells us elsewhere that we must be vigilant and ready, as we don't know when this will be. But here, he confirms what the signs will be. And when you hear of wars and rumours of wars, do not be alarmed. This must take place, but the end is not yet. For nations will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places. There will be famines. It seems appropriate to consider that despite remembering the centenary of the First World War armistice only last week, that war to end all wars did not hold. Indeed, it's estimated that over 120 million people have died in conflict since that armistice, and there doesn't seem to be any sign of conflict really easing. Our treatment of the environment isn't much better. With the dangers of plastic in the environment becoming clearer in the eyes of governments and the public, even the solution of recycling comes into question. Really, the solution isn't to recycle, because in actual fact you can't recycle most plastics in any case, and you can only recycle those you can a finite number of times. We shouldn't be relying on plastics in the first place. But beyond this comes industry and pollution, which affects weather patterns and affects climate change. As temperatures increase in agricultural regions, which grows, or what can grow in these areas changes, and when the coffee and the cocoa that you love only grows under a narrow temperature range in the first place, you're going to quickly notice as the food prices start to go up. Our quest for fossil fuels from previously inaccessible areas through fracking sees pollution entering the waterways and has been linked to seismic activity in areas where previously there has been none. If we read this passage again, it almost reads as a mirror to the world we currently live in. Coupled with our own impact on the world, we experience storms, fires, earthquakes, and tsunamis, and one wonders if it is indeed signs of the end. So, how do we wait for, and more importantly, interpret the end times? I think there's a danger in reading too much into biblical explanations and seeing similarities there to our current world, and mislabeling storms and earthquakes, causing hurt to people in the process. Are we somehow saying that the victims of catastrophes and war are somehow responsible for their own despair? Surely not. Indeed, Jesus warns us of the danger of overly clear explanation. Many will come in his name, Jesus cautions, but they are not him. Since we humans are so prone to confusion, Jesus explicitly advises against alarm and overreaction. A more faithful response to disaster is not by pointing a finger or making shocking accusations, but rather in service to God and to our fellows. Storms, tsunamis, earthquakes, wildfires. Sadly, we know too well that one day there will be another storm, another shooting, another conflict, another fire, another earthquake. We must not interpret these events in ways that Jesus specifically warned against. Instead, we can follow the one who healed others, who urged care for the least in society, who loved above and beyond, even in the most desperate of times upon the cross. And if we truly love those around us, and if we truly understand our role as stewards of this world, we can encourage ourselves and those around us to respect each other and our world too. We can leave that plastic packaging at the store. We can buy ethically. We can leave the car at home and walk to town. We can use social media to put support behind a cause and pressure on our politicians to hear our truth. Through sharing God's love, we can also work to bring back to the world we are so close to destroying through our material greed. We did so well together in tidying our churchyard, and we do so well together to earn our church environmental accolades. And indeed, we're quite proud actually to have this. A rocker, eco-church. We've achieved this just basically through what we do, through recycling, through caring for our environment. And it's really not an award for us, it's an award for all of us. Not one person did this, it's everyone here who did this. We're perfectly able to equip each other to transform our communities for the better. Jesus gave a vague answer as to when God will renew the world in God's perfect form, but the instructions for caring for our neighbours is not fuzzy. It's incredibly clear. When disasters hit, we as Jesus believers should leave the end-time worries to God, but be his hands on earth to save those afflicted.